Good to go up here.
Mindset.
That should hold.
Father, forgive us. We shed this blood in the name of mercy.
From Dead Island to Dying Light 2, video games and zombies go together like peaches and cream. The undead hordes trotting in the player's direction can make for some exciting scares, action-packed excitement, and many good targets to hit. Due to their frightening character and relative ease of programming, their soulless, mindless nature also provides for perfect opponent AI. Okay, to start, there are so many zombie apocalypse games out there and we couldn't limit ourselves to one list. Here are the 10 best zombie games of all time. Number 10, Dead Island. Dead Island was developed by Techland, who went on to develop Dying Light, a game we'll also talk about in this list. In Dead Island, players start the game as one of 4 playable characters, each with their own unique traits. Stuck on an island struck by a zombie plague, it turns out that you're immune to the disease, which conveniently means that you're the last chance for the rest of the survivors to escape the resort island safely. This game mixes in melee combat with plenty of gunplay while players explore the island and handle various missions or tasks requested by survivors. Zombies can vary as well, from the standard slow-moving zombies to rams, big tank-type zombies that are incredibly fast. The definitive edition comes packed with DLC and improved visuals. There's been a sequel for this game in the works for several years now that is currently being kicked around to different developers, but it might come out someday. Number 9, World War Z. No one part of World War Z is all that impressive on its own, but if you're looking for a way to mow down hundreds of thousands of zombies with a group of friends or strangers, there's no better game for you. It's loosely based on the 2013 Brad Pitt movie, but that's mostly an excuse to repurpose the one memorable thing about the film: massive hordes of zombies that rush through streets and crash around corners like a river through a broken dam. It clearly takes some cues from the Left 4 Dead franchise, but adds in some modern gaming standbys like selectable classes with persistent progression. You could play as a slasher who gets extra health from taking out enemies in quick succession, a fixer who lays down traps to secure areas, or one of 4 other classes. Whoever you decide to level up first, you'll get to unload plenty of lead into moving walls of rotten flesh. Number 8, The Forest. The Forest was an extremely brutal adventure horror survival game. Being a survival game, the stakes are very high. Survival of the fittest, kill or be killed. There's also a huge hidden story to unravel, discovering the mystery and dark secrets of the island and its terrifying inhabitants, as well as trying to find your son. As the lone survivor of a passenger jet crash, you find yourself in a mysterious forest battling to stay alive against a society of cannibalistic mutants while searching for your lost son. This game is very dark, and while the graphics are great, it's also chillingly realistic at times. I love the entire concept. Out in the forest in the middle of nowhere after a plane crash on a mysterious island filled with cannibal natives and grotesque mutants. Psychological horror at its finest. The lack of thematic music will have your ears pricked, listening to every noise in the background. You have to be prepared always, for everything like basic survival needs, from the elements and terrain, illnesses, and poisoning, from the creatures lurking in the woods. Overall, this game was very fun and creepy. The premise is very dark and there is plenty of gore. I love the survival aspects. There is a lot to do in this game and it can be very addictive. Number 7, Dying Light. As we mentioned earlier, Dying Light was a game developed by Techland. This title follows an agent named Kyle Crane who is tasked with infiltrating the quarantine-zoned city of Heron, which has become infected with a virus turning civilians into ruthless zombies. The zombies in this game follow a day and night cycle. During the day, the zombies are lethargic and won't put up a fight. However, things quickly change for the worse at night as they become incredibly aggressive. Developers have also tossed in some parkour elements, allowing players to easily traverse the city and its obstacles when fleeing the undead hordes. Combat has been changed from the melee focus in Dead Island towards more gunplay, giving players a true action-adventure experience. It's worth mentioning the DLC expansion, Dying Light, the following. This puts players on a new map filled with more content such as modifiable vehicles. Meanwhile, zombies are still very much a threat, but alongside them is an ancient cult. Number 6. Left 4 Dead 2. It's been 13 years, but this zombie survival game is economical in the way Valve shooters are. That means that, unlike many zombie games, it has aged well, despite the lack of any fancy physically based rendering or global illumination. While some post-apocalyptic scenarios default to a familiar version of zombies we have long been desensitized to, this presents a world in which normality is all too recent. Though cities have emptied out after waves of evacuations, humanity feels close enough to touch thanks to the messages scrawled on the walls of safe houses. There is a unique warmth here, too. The cultural influence of New Orleans and its environs seeps from the swamps to the streets and into the soundtrack. Number 5. Days Gone. Days Gone was a very hyped up title before release, simply because it was being developed by SIE Ben Studio. This is a group we hadn't heard from for a long time despite creating the Siphon Filter franchise. Days Gone takes place after a virus outbreak turns most of humanity into zombies. Players step into the role of a biker named Deacon St. John, who is getting by in the world by doing odd jobs for various factions. With that said, you'll want to be mindful of your surroundings as this game features a horde feature that will have a massive collection of zombies wandering around the map together. Without spoiling too much of the narrative, Deacon lives his life on a day-to-day basis without much of an end goal. However, he learns that there's a chance that his wife may still be alive somewhere in the world, setting him on a new path to find out what happened to her during the pandemic. While this game was initially a PlayStation 4 exclusive, Sony has since ported it to PC. Number 4. The Last of Us. Without a doubt, The Last of Us remains the best zombie game ever made. It takes you on a dangerous cross-country journey through an overgrown, largely post-human United States. In addition to mushroom brain zombies that are waiting to rip your jugular out with their teeth, the world is filled with desperate gun-toting survivalists, a repressive government, and savage rebel groups. And best of all, you get to do the whole thing with a snarky teenage girl alternately making fun of you and saving your life. Joel and Ellie's quest is as dark as it is tense. The dilapidated, creepy environments set the perfect tone for the stealth/survival gameplay that cranks up the suspense to almost unbearable levels. This isn't your typical going guns blazing zombie game. You'll have to sneak past stronger foes, conserve your ammo, and scavenge for supplies. The action-packed moments let you feel every bone-crushing, face-smashing blow, and the dramatic scenes are just as emotionally engaging. If you're looking for the ultimate zombie survival experience, The Last of Us is by far the best you're going to get. Number 3. State of Decay 2. If you're looking for a compelling story, you're better served by the original State of Decay. However, the sequel does an admirable job of fleshing out the first game's systems to make for a more satisfying survival/open-world game. Playing like an RPG, State of Decay 2 has a simple yet satisfying core loop. You will pick a protagonist from your community of survivors and take them out into the wild to find the necessary food, fuel, or drugs to keep the rest alive. Once they collapse into bed back home, or under the blows of the undead, you can take control of another character from your base with their own background, personality, and combat abilities. Number 2. The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 is a masterful swan song for the PlayStation 4, and arguably the finest, most accomplished project Naughty Dog has ever embarked on. It's far more than a traditional sequel, taking the original's core message and expanding upon it in ways that will be looked back on as brave, ambitious, and undeniably controversial. Stealth is a far more viable tactic this time around, with the majority of environments awash with overgrown foliage you can dive into, crawling past mercenaries and infected waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Some encounters can be avoided entirely, leading your adversaries to search fruitlessly for a ghost that has long passed them by. Being spotted is a common occurrence though, so you'll need to emerge from your shrubbery fortress and face the music. Number 1. Dying Light 2, Stay Human. Dying Light 2 Stay Human was one of the more anticipated video game releases in 2022, and playing the first Dying Light wasn't a prerequisite to enjoying this installment. The narrative is set years after the events of the original game. Players take on the role of a young man named Aiden, who journeys to locate his missing sister. Experimented on as children, they were eventually separated. Now, years later, Aiden is tracking down where his sister ended up, but the world is even more hostile than you might remember. Along with hostile factions, you'll also have to deal with the undead. The infected will roam around the world, but they also differ a bit. You'll see the typical undead that will attempt to take a bite out of you in the open. However, there are newly turned zombies that move around fast, howlers that will alert your presence, banshees that have incredible jumping range, and spitters that can spew acid, among several others. Fortunately, the game is essentially a giant playground. Aiden is skilled in parkour, and as a result, you'll easily be able to vault, sprint, and climb around the area in an escape from danger. If you're familiar with the first game, you're also getting a vastly larger map than the original Dying Light. Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other recent videos and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest uploads. That's it for today. Peace out.